Yesterday, crypto markets experienced an absolute bloodbath, and I'm sure if you took one look at your portfolio, especially at any point last night, you shed a tear or two. And more specifically, if you're invested in XRP, it's still very much possible that we could get a sell-off for a 57% loss of the highs down to $1.24. Now, in this video, I'll share how that's possible and what would need to occur in order for that to happen. But just in the last 24 hours, crypto markets have experienced $880 million in leveraged liquidations being wiped out. And overall, people have experienced losses to the tune of $40 billion in crypto markets from the recent highs of 3.8 trillion down to 3.4 trillion. Now, we don't have to assume what caused this. We know it was the Fed, and more specifically, Jerome Powell, that sent markets into chaos. And who wouldn't be pissed off as their portfolios were deeply in the red? A gentleman by the name of Marty said, "Today's performance by Jerome Powell will go down as the worst display of leadership by a U.S. fiscal representative ever. No one was protected, no business was protected, consumer confidence was destroyed for no reason outside of causation by the Fed." To which he finished the statement, "Nobody trusts Powell, it's over." Now, with all of this market commotion, the question many people have been asking on the channel, and one you may be asking yourself after experiencing yesterday's sell-off and today's speedy recovery, as you can see, we have this V-shaped bottom and recovery, is that will the markets continue selling off? Or was this just a dead cat bounce? A retrace before a major bear market begins. So in this video, we'll cover quotes from Jerome Powell on Wednesday's Fed conference so you can be better prepared for the next time Powell says something that will cause markets to panic and potentially allow you time to make a strong decision with your portfolio. Also, I'll cover some recent news that will cause a lot of disarray in the White House and potentially even markets as Trump is set to take office in January, and it already feels like there's a coup. We'll be covering futures markets and what day traders think is coming next for XRP. And of course, we'll cover the price action on XRP and whether or not you should be accumulating more now or sprinting for the nearest exit. So let's dive into the video. And as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Paul and you can find me on Twitter or X at PaulieDeFi, PaulieDeFi. That said, I want to make a quick correction. The other day in the video, for whatever reason, I was looking at some data and I looked at expectations versus what actually happened at 4.5%, which is what would be the current interest rate set by the Fed. So I saw 4.5% and then 4.5%, totally forgetting that we were currently sitting at 4.75% because my mind has been so busy focused on crypto, investing in trades and our group. So that said, I wasn't really paying too much attention to the Fed interest rate until obviously it really mattered. And so I want to make an apology. If you watched the last video, I said they didn't change the interest rate. They actually did. Now, that said, what is it that Jerome Powell shared that actually sent markets flying? So in this short video, we're going to watch Jerome Powell and what he shared.
With today's action, we have lowered our policy rate by a full percentage point from its peak, and our policy stance is now significantly less restrictive. We can therefore be more cautious as we consider further adjustments to our policy rate. In our summary of economic projections, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate, based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.9% at the end of next year, and 3.4% at the end of 2026. These median projections are somewhat higher than in September, consistent with the firmer inflation projection. These projections, however, are not a committee plan or decision.
What he's sharing there is that now they are going to be more hawkish, that moving into the next year and even by 2026, they're going to keep interest rates at 3.4% to 3.9%. In other words, 3.4 to 3.9% is still really hawkish, and the cost of borrowing capital is going to be quite restrictive, considering in 2008 all the way to 2015, the end of 2015 into 2016, interest rates were near zero. Then again in 2020 through February to March of 2022, interest rates were near zero. Then they climbed so fast, so rapidly in order to catch up with inflation that the Fed has always been behind the ball. And it seems that they are so far behind the ball now that they are still trying to fight inflation into the next couple of years while restricting capital markets. And this pissed off a lot of investors, which is why markets started selling off tremendously. Now here I've actually highlighted some quotes from that direct speech that I believe are there very relevant and will help us to understand why markets sold off so hard. First and foremost, he's basically stating that inflation expectations remain well anchored. And when you say something like that, basically what you're telling the market is we want to keep interest rates higher for longer. But it's not just that, it's also because of the fact that they think the economy is in a really good place and that the labor market is solid, and so they can be cautious about considering further rate cuts. These two quotes alone are basically stating, hey, we are going to keep interest rates higher, although everyone else was expecting multiple rate cuts next year, and we're talking at least 3 to 4. But instead we're getting maybe 1 to 2. And so why would they cut rates, considering that reducing policy restraint too slowly could unduly weaken economy and employment? Now, what's crazy is those statements alone from the most powerful man in finance caused $1.8 trillion, not 1.5, I got that wrong, $1.8 trillion. And maybe that's just because the data is consistently showing up, right? So as I'm doing homework for these videos, sometimes you'll see data and then it's like, oh, it's at 1.5, oh, it's at 1.6. Now it is at $1.8 trillion of data, USD was erased in a single day, but the Fed rate cut of 25 basis points was expected. So why is this the reaction? Well, it could just be the fact that he used really hawkish language, but also there is a very strong correlation between the very first rate cut and then when markets continue to start to sell off. So as you can see here, we have the dot-com bubble. Right here, we have the Great Recession or the housing bubble. Then over here, we have 2019 into the pandemic and coronavirus. And yet again, the very first rate cut just a few months back. However, markets have continued to rally. Well, it did the exact same thing in 2019 into 2020 for about 6 months before selling off. The same exact thing happened here for about 2 months in 2007 before the market really crumbled and collapsed. And then in similar fashion here in 2001, markets were already showing weakness at that first rate cut. And so typically the reason that the Fed lowers interest rates is in response to a weak economy. So maybe this is just a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe this time truly isn't different. Or maybe, just maybe, as a good rule of thumb, you always want to sell the first rate cut. And because the Fed has always been so behind the ball, typically we're already feeling the effects of recessionary pressures well before they respond and cut rates. As you can see right here, the markets were already collapsing and tumbling right around here by the next time the Fed cut the rates all the way down to near zero. And in similar fashion, the markets collapsed before they lowered the interest rates to zero. Well, who says that can't happen again? That they won't lower interest rates to near zero as markets are collapsing. Now, I'm not saying that is going to happen, and maybe not for crypto until sometime in May. But what I am saying is that this is an eerie correlation. Every time we get our terminal interest rate for a period of time, the very first rate cut is a great time to start getting out of markets. In other news, we have Mike Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House, who approved a pork barrel bill according to Elon Musk. He said the House approves a revised plan to avert a government shutdown, and it actually needs to be signed by like 12 a.m. tonight, probably Eastern time, considering that is Washington, D.C. However, lawmakers voted 366 to 34 to approve the proposal. Now, Mike Johnson signed the first bill, which is why I don't believe he's going to do too too well in Washington under this new administration. It sounds like he's trying to play both sides here as a bipartisan. But at the end of the day, when you have this much bloat in government, it truly doesn't work out for anyone, as the original 1,547 pages of the bipartisan text was slimmed down to 116 pages for Thursday's vote, and then finally grew slightly to 118 pages on Friday before they put it forward. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad dude, but I'll be honest with you. When you're ready to sign a bill like this and then you're going down to something like this, it's likely because you were pressured. It's likely because you're worried your job or your position in Washington is on the line and in jeopardy. And so even Elon went to Twitter, and I'll go ahead and make it a little bit bigger, and said, your actions turned a bill that weighed pounds into a bill that weighed ounces. You are the media now, and here was the original bill. Here is the bill that they just signed off on, and now it needs to pass the Senate and be signed by the president before the deadline. That said, I do believe this person, and in particular any Republicans wanting to sign a 1,500-page bill, are going to cause a lot of issues in Washington, which will cause issues in markets. Now, before we dive into the technical analysis and the futures markets, so you can decide what to do with your XRP portfolio, head on over to bullrunners.com to check out Altcoin Pro University. This is your one-stop shop to become a crypto millionaire in 2025. Obviously, that is not a guarantee. You do have to put in the work, but we provide all of the right tools and resources and training for you. Not only do we have hundreds of hours of courses that we will consistently update in here, but we also run live calls where you can ask any question you like. That said, we are going to be raising the prices to $197 by January 1st. So it looks like you might only have about 10, 11 days left. And the reason we're doing that is because we've already hit that 1,000 member mark. Now, the reality is we can't service as many people as well, considering these live calls get a little crazy and hectic at times. And so it's important to us that we sift and sort and filter through people that are very serious. So yes, we do have to raise the price. This was like our promo price for the very launch of this thing. Then we will be raising the price to $197. So if you get started before that time, you will be grandfathered and locked in at that $97 a month rate. But not only will we give you live calls and courses, we will also be sharing with you altcoin picks that we simply do not share on the channel. Things that sometimes 5x, 10x, 50x, and sometimes even 100x. We'll be teaching you how to do technical analysis and fundamental analysis like a pro. We'll also be showing you how to get access to the best DeFi yields in all of crypto. So if you already own crypto or holding onto it, instead of just sitting on there and doing nothing, why don't you go ahead and put it to work for you and earn some yield on it? And then finally, we'll be sharing airdrop alerts, and we have a community that is bar none one of the best. These are people that are obviously very serious because they're paying to be here, and so a lot of these people share value in ways that we simply can't. It's actually kind of crazy once you build a community like this, how valuable it truly is. So I think for $97 a month, it's an absolute no-brainer, but you can make that decision for yourself. Head on over to bullrunners.com, watch this 26-minute video, and if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask us on the channel, in the comments, or send us an email. But with that said, let's get back into the video. Now, the real question you might be asking yourself is, should you be accumulating more? Should you be running for the exit on your XRP position? Now, here's the reality. We did pump really hard for like a 500% gain to this local high. And a lot of the times when you get a move that strong, you do need time to cool off. The good news is we have been supported right here. And so what would happen, or what would need to occur for a 57% sell-off? Well, the reality is we're also failing to break above this range at about 262. As you can see here, we have a wick, and I'll just go ahead and pull this off now to the upside right here. We sold off, and then we started to break back down on the news from Jerome Powell just the other day to $1.96 yet again. And I made mention of how my buy zone or target is somewhere above that $2.22 range. If we hit that range, then I will be buying. And so that's exactly what I did. That said, I am also holding out and just slightly cautious now, considering we are now holding the 20 EMA, but are failing to break above the 10 EMA. And with this long, strong wick and the fact that we failed to break out, it is very much possible and potential that we continue to break down. And so again, when in doubt, zoom out. Sometimes it helps to zoom out and see what's actually happening. And as you can see here, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight weeks of up. And when you get 5 straight weeks of up, sometimes you need to cool off a bit. So it is very much possible we get another wick down here to $1.96, maybe another buy opportunity, or just potentially if we continue to get sell-offs that were insane like they were in TradFi markets or traditional financial markets like the S&P 500 and Dow Jones, we could potentially even break right back down here to the $1.24 range on that 20 EMA on a weekly time frame. Now here's what's really interesting. When I put a zone right there, I'll say from $1.30 all the way back, you can see that this aligns near perfectly with our previous resistances and a bull trap in the 2021 bull market. So if we pulled back to this range, it really wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility or something that would be normal in a situation where then you build support and then you start to break out for a new move to a new all-time high. But still, it helps to actually, and so this is where it helps to actually look at what day traders are doing, so then you can make a decision over the short term into the long term. That said, long-term position for me is still pretty bullish through the end of the year. However, I am starting to get a bit more skittish. If we get another little breakdown below that 20 EMA on a daily time frame, I'm looking to probably get out and just chill. I don't need to hold every single bag forever. The reality is not every bull market has to last through April and May, and this time truly could be different. That said, I like to come over here to CoinGlass. I go to the liquidation maps, and then from there you can scroll right down below, and here I toss it onto XRP. I put it on a 7-day time frame, and as you can see on a 7-day time frame, so it actually does help quite a bit. I can even get rid of Binance, OKX, leave it at that. On the left hand side, you can see that we're going to get $63 million of leverage liquidated on the long side, and over here we are going to have $160 million of leverage liquidated on the short side. Again, something for those of you guys who are new or maybe haven't seen me use this before, it's actually quite helpful to tell you the direction of the trend or where the majority of bets are actually being placed. And right now the majority of money is behind the short side, $160 million worth, whereas over here we only have about $63 million worth. So we almost have $100 million more of shorts. And typically when I see this type of a play, that is the direction that the market moves in. So yes, to me, this has potentially been a dead cat bounce. So I'll come down to a 4-hour time frame, and we'll look at it. Okay, obviously we have a bit of a support right here. So as you can see, I'll go ahead and take a box tool and then just draw that support. And as you can see, it touches perfectly that previous all-time high before we really rallied, but it also touches the wicks on the downside. So this does to me look like a slight dead cat bounce, considering we're also on the 4-hour time frame below the 10 and 20 EMA, and on the daily time frame we're really kind of struggling. Although we have a very big wick and some actual dip buyers, we are failing to break above highs, and actually this candle is still weaker on the daily time frame than the previous candle. As you can see here, there's no wick above the previous wick over here. So to me, this is an indicator that I still need to be patient. Do I want to buy or add any more to my positions? No. However, on a daily time frame, if we break below here or even right here, from an actual candle perspective, yes, I will be taking some profits, considering I am in profit on XRP. And why wouldn't I be, considering we've been talking about it forever and we're accumulating through this entire range? Even though I would have loved to take a boatload of profit here, it is also equally possible and potential the market rallied even higher, up to $5+. So you never know what's actually going to happen. You can never predict what someone is going to say that moves markets. And so ultimately you have to have a game plan for yourself, and you have to be trained properly. You have to be able to think properly through these problems. Even though we have all of this news and information, sometimes it helps to just have a strategy as simple as the one that I just shared with you, and then to look at volume. And sometimes volume will tell you a story too. Volume's telling me that although we had a lot of dip buying here, the volume is still relatively weak compared to what it was back here. As you can see, we had growing volume into the all-time high, and now we're having declining volume as we failed to break to new highs. So this declining volume is speaking volumes to me, and what it's telling me is that I need to be more patient. So that is exactly what I will do. As Jesse Livermore, one of the best traders ever in history, once shared, he said, the fortunes are made in sitting on your hands and doing nothing. In other words, sometimes you make a fortune by being patient. And that's exactly what we'll be teaching you to do here. And that's exactly why you should head on over to bullrunners.com. Again, you can find the link in the description below. We have like 1,070, almost 1.1K members. And again, we will be raising the price to $197 a month from that $97 a month range. However, if you get started before then, you will be locked in at that rate. So I think it's an absolute steal. Not only are you going to get the classes, you're going to get live calls with us. You're going to learn how to do technical analysis with pros. You're going to learn how to pick altcoins. And actually, we'll just be sharing altcoins with you that we simply don't share on the channel. That 5x, 10x, 50x, whatever. And they really do. And sometimes they don't, and that's okay. But we're consistently sharing information with you that's going to help you to become a crypto millionaire. And again, I can't guarantee that you'll be a millionaire, but this is the best platform for you to have the tools, training, and resources to do it. So that said, thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate your time. If you learned something new, be sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out, and I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Goodbye.